Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the California High-Speed Rail Authority's Board of Directors meeting for March 6th. We'll begin if the secretary can call the roll.
Director Schenk. Here. Chair Richards.
Here.
Director Camacho. Vice Chair Miller.
Here.
Director Perea.
Here.
Director Gilmetti. Director Escutia. Director Williams.
Here.
Director Cohen.
Here.
Assemblymember Arambula. Senator Gonzalez. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. If we could start by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, and if we could ask Director Gilmetti, would you lead that today? To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Thank you. And again, welcome to all of you in the room. And for those of you who are listening or watching around the state, welcome. We'll now start with public comment. And Alice, if you'll please let the people here and visiting us on the television or the radio or wherever it might be, how they can address the board this morning.
Sure thing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Before we begin public comment for the California High-Speed Rail Board of Directors meeting, I would like to review some important information. For members of the public who have joined us in person and wish to provide public comment, you will be called on in the order we received your card. If you are joining the meeting via Zoom and wish to provide public comment, please use the raise your hand feature located at the bottom of the app. If you are calling in by phone, pressing the number 2 will raise your hand and put you in the queue. Speakers will be called on in the order their hands are raised. Once you are in the queue and your name is called, please click the prompt on your screen to allow your microphone to be unmuted. If you are joining by phone, we will call on you by the last 4 digits of your phone number. At that point, you will hear a message that your phone is being unmuted. Each speaker will be given 2 minutes. I will remind you when you have 15 seconds remaining. When it is your turn to speak, please slowly and clearly say your first and last name, and if applicable, please state the organization you are representing. Our first speaker is C. Lee.
Good morning, Ms. Lee.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Judery, members of the public. My name is C. Lee. I'm the CEO for the Boys and Girls Club in Merced County. And I am here today. You know, I drove up from Merced. I was contemplating if I needed to be here, and my gut basically told me I have to be. And I was wishing that high-speed rail was already in place because traffic was horrendous. But I am here today not because I want to be here to create issues for you, because I know you have more than you need to handle at this particular point. But I do want to continue to bring to your attention the need to replace the Boys and Girls Club in Merced County. Where we are located currently right now, for the last 24 years, we've served over 3,700 kids just last year alone. And the one thing that is threatening our existence right now is high-speed rail with no plan to address where we go. I know that we are entitled to relocation funds because we're tenants in our facility, but where do we go? Where do you send our boxes with those relocation funds? I do not believe that you cannot do more as a board. Policies are intended to be changed, regulations can be changed, and all of you around this table have the power and the network to make that happen. And I hope that between now and then, I will hear a response from you that is going to be beneficial to the young people in our family, the future that's supposed to be writing, the high-speed rail that we are building for the future. I hope that the one responsibility we have to inform the public of this impact, that it's going to be a positive headline versus a negative one. I'm asking you to make bold actions today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. And I think you're probably aware that I have been in touch with your mayor as well as your the city manager of Merced. So I know that they're aware of the situation also.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
You're
sir.
welcome.
We'll now go to the Zoom participants. Our next speaker is Richard Hernandez.
Good morning, Mr. Hernandez.
Hello. Good morning, board and everybody in the audience. Uh, uh, We were just received notice 2 days ago that we were our right-of-way engineering contracts were terminated. Since October of 2023, we've been working with Bill Casey, who is no longer now with the authority. Since Bill Casey left in October 2024, things have gone kind of downhill. We were never given a project schedule, and we were saying we weren't delivering our work on a timely manner. That is not a true statement that the authority has accused us of staff. We should not have been the ones terminated on our contract. Prior to this date, we had a very successful 9.5 year contract with the authority. We were able to set standards. We met all deliverables. Every project that we were given, we delivered on time and within budget. Never had an issue for 9.5 years. Once our new contract, we had two right-of-way engineering contracts, and we were terminated. And that is a very sad day. We were recognized for our company providing 100% small business. We're a small business, women-owned, and we also are a micro business. So this is how the authority is going to be treating small businesses. I'm sad. I'm real sad that the authority has treated a small business like us. We were very successful. We are in the process of probably laying off people due to the fact that the authority staff
15 seconds.
has been very detrimental to our business. And so I leave it with you, with the board. I approached the board in February of 2024 because payment was withheld for $500,000 for 3 months, excuse me. So it's sad. So I'm going to leave it with the board. My time's out, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk today.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez, for speaking today this morning.
At this time, I see no other hands raised. That concludes our public
Okay,
comment.
thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll now move on to agenda item number 1, which is the approval of the January 23rd board meeting minutes. Any questions, comments, or motion? Do we have a motion and second? Please call the roll.
Director Schenk,
Yes.
Chair Richards,
Yes.
Director Camacho, Vice Chair Miller,
Yes.
Director Perea,
Yes.
Director Gilmetti, Director Escutia, Director Williams,
Aye.
Director Cohen. Director Cohen?
Aye. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, the motion carries.
Thank you. Before we start item number 2, I just wanted to mention that Alicia Fowler, who has been our chief counsel for a number of years, was promoted beyond us and is now the chief counsel for California State Transportation Commission. So we wanted to thank Alicia for her service and for congratulate her on the promotion that she has left us to move on. So this morning in item number 2, we have Bagley-Keene Training. Alicia has handled that each year, and we'll welcome this morning Ms. Brombeek. And are you speaking? And
I am, and Elena Pacheco.
great.
She will start
Good
today.
morning.
Good morning, directors, CEO Chowdhury. As Ms. Bonebrake said, my name is Elena Pacheco. I'm an attorney here at the authority. Among other things, I focus on good governance, including our topic for today, the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act. Next slide, please. So I'll take us through the fundamentals this morning, the basic rules and elements of Bagley-Keene. This should be a refresher for all of you. And after that, I'll hand it over to our Assistant Chief Counsel to talk more about the specific rules governing teleconferences, closed sessions, and the best practices to keep in mind when the board is discussing active procurements. Next slide. So let's jump in. The purpose of Bagley-Keene, as you all know, is to ensure that the actions of state agencies be taken openly and that their deliberation be conducted openly as well. Like all public agencies, the authority is accountable to the citizens of California. One of the most important ways we demonstrate that accountability is by way of open and accessible public meetings, all of which must comply with Bagley-Keene. Next slide, please. Which brings us to the fundamental rule of Bagley-Keene. In a nutshell, state bodies are required to conduct their business and deliberate at meetings that are open to the public. The first element, next slide, please, of that important rule is what is a state body? State bodies are, like this board, boards, commissions, other multi-member bodies, either created by statute or delegated.
Excuse me. Is it coming up there so that the public can see as well? It seems like the screens are empty. Well, there's one here, but they can, oh, there is there. Okay. Okay.
All right. And other multi-board, multi-member boards, including state bodies and commissions or advisory boards and commissions, are also subject to Bagley-Keene. One point we wanted to make here is that Bagley-Keene requirements are in effect as soon as an appointment is made to a board or a commission. So it might be that someone's service might not start for several months after their appointment, but the rules of Bagley-Keene are actually in effect at that moment of appointment. Next slide, please. The other important element of the Bagley-Keene rule governs meetings. So what is a meeting? It's a majority of the board or a commission where they are at the same place at the same time, discussing issues within the body's subject matter jurisdiction. For this board, a quorum of 5 voting members conducting authority business triggers the Bagley-Keene requirements. There are different kinds of meetings you'll all be familiar. Of course, there are regular meetings such as this one, special and emergency meetings. Next slide, please. There are also serial meetings. A serial meeting comprises several communications, each among less than a majority of the body, but taken together involve a majority. You'll be most familiar with this in the context of sort of replying all to an email. Bagley-Keene strictly prohibits serial meetings, which is to say, again, another concrete example might be where one board member is talking to our assistant chief counsel or our CEO. That message is then relayed to another board member who then uses the same person to relay a message to another board member. And all the while, a majority of board members over time start communicating through one single hub. Again, this is strictly prohibited under Bagley-Keene. So remember, when you're emailing specifically, don't reply all. Do not take a position or make a commitment. When you're emailing board or council, make sure to strictly include information only. Take caution to ensure compliance with this, as it can accidentally occur. Next slide, please. There are several gatherings that do not constitute a meeting, in which case Bagley-Keene would not apply. These include social gatherings, conferences, other public agency meetings where you all might be interested in the subject matter at the time. A majority of the board is allowed to be present at these kinds of gatherings without any special notice or permission. That said, it is critical in these instances that if you find yourself among a majority of your colleagues here at the board, that you all refrain from discussing authority business. And why is that? Because if a majority of the board is in the same place at the same time conducting authority business, it constitutes a meeting. And Bagley-Keene establishes some basic requirements for all of our meetings. Next slide. One of those basic requirements is notice. Bagley-Keene requires that a notice of every meeting be published at least 10 days before that meeting. As you all know, the notice must include the time, the place of the meeting. It must include agenda, which briefly describes the actions and the informational items that might be taken during that meeting. And we have to make sure that our public meetings are accessible to the public. Next slide, please. In particular, we need to ensure that that the meeting space is physically accessible, that we don't do things like charge fees for our meetings, that there are no barriers, physical or otherwise, to our public meetings. And with that, I will hand it over to Kendall.
So good morning, Board of Directors, CEO. My name is Kendall Bonebrake. I'm the Assistant Chief Counsel here at the Authority, and I will move on to cover teleconference meetings. So many of you are familiar with the teleconference meetings we've had in place under Bagley-Keene for quite some time. These teleconference meetings allow people to attend the meeting via remote location. However, there are very specific requirements that we have to meet when we adhere to the teleconference meetings under Bagley-Keene. For example, people of the public must be able to attend the meeting at the teleconference locations. They must be able to observe the meeting, hear the meeting, and provide public comment. The location must be on the agenda, and the agenda must be posted at the location. Additionally, anytime we are moving forward with a teleconference meeting, all votes must be taken via roll call, and all members appearing via teleconference must appear on screen. Next slide. Effective in January of 2024, Bagley-Keene allows for an alternative teleconference meeting. These meetings are different than the teleconference meetings that we've been allowed to do under Bagley-Keene for quite some time. These meetings allow people to attend via what we call remote locations. These are private locations. However, a majority of the board, like we have here today, 5 of our members, must be here in person at the physically present at the location that is publicly noticed. The other members of the board may be in private locations. There is a narrow exception to the requirement that a majority of the board be present at the agendized location, and that is if a member has a disability that cannot be reasonably accommodated. Next slide. There are very few requirements that we have to meet when we are using this alternative teleconference meeting. The only requirement about the remote location is that the member present at this location must disclose any individual over the age of 18 who is in the room with them, as well as their general relationship with that individual. Next slide. Moving on to closed sessions. So as Ms. Pacheco pointed out, most of the board's meetings must be conducted in public. However, there are some narrow exceptions, and those are called closed session exceptions. If we do move forward with a closed session, we must mention the closed session in the open meeting. We must agendize what we are going to talk about. We must only discuss what has been agendized. And at the end of the closed session, we must return to the open session and provide the information about actions taken, any required disclosures, and any additional required information under the Act. One other thing to mention about closed sessions, they are confidential. So the information discussed in closed session needs to be kept in closed session. Otherwise, there may be a breach of the confidentiality, and therefore the closed session information no longer is confidential. Next slide. Just touching on a few of the permissible topics in closed session. Number 1, personnel matters. So the hiring, dismissal, or evaluation of personnel, pending litigation, including the substantial threat of litigation, as well as a discussion about whether or not to file litigation. Additionally, if there are any criminal or terrorist threats against the agency, our data, or our property, that may be discussed in closed session. Closed sessions are supposed to be very small. Permissible parties include only board members, legal counsel, and only necessary staff. Generally speaking, that is the CEO and maybe 1 or 2 staff members who have pertinent information to the topic discussed. Next slide. Penalties and remedies for violations of the Act do exist. If we do move forward and we violate Bagley-Keene, decisions made may be null and void. We may have to pay court costs and attorney's fees of someone who brings successful litigation. There are also criminal misdemeanor penalties that may be assessed for violations. Next slide. So as we wrap up the Bagley-Keene training, we have one last slide, and that is 2 of the common law principles for Bagley-Keene. One is the prohibition of bias. All board members are supposed to exercise their power for the benefit of the public and not for any type of private interest. Therefore, if a board member has any type of personal or financial interest in a matter before the board, they are required to recuse themselves. This guards against favoritism and prevents a waste of public funds. Additionally, we want to ensure that we are preserving competition in our procurements. As a state agency, we are supposed to give all interested parties an equal opportunity to do business with the authority. Therefore, anytime we are discussing something in open session, we need to make sure it's on the agenda. This is important because it gives the public the ability to review an agenda and decide whether or not to attend the meeting based on what will be discussed. If something is not on the agenda, a member of the public may choose not to attend a meeting because they don't think anything important to them is part of the discussion. And last but not least, the authority always has active procurements. It is important that we as a board and as an authority do not discuss active procurements when they are out for bid. This could undermine the confidentiality of the procurement as well as allow the public to perceive the discussions as bias. With that, I will close this training and ask if there are any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Bonebrake. Any questions from Ms. Pacheco or Ms.
One
Bonebrake?
question.
Yes, Director Camacho.
What the constitution of what constitutes a meeting or the number of people that can participate? How about in a committee meeting? Can we have more than 3 people or 4 people?
So yes, any committee meeting that is 3 or more would need to be, I guess actually, did they have 4? That's a good question. So 3 or 4, because 5 would be a meeting. So 3 or 4 would be acceptable. However, that would be subject to Bagley-Keene. The only committee that would not be subject to Bagley-Keene is a 2-person committee.
Okay, so we can have a committee that has 4 members in it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you. Yes, Director. Shane.
Thank you. Just a comment in the interest of full transparency so that public knows that we each go through a Department of Justice ethics training that is quite comprehensive, and it includes Bagley-Keene. So this is not the first time nor the last that we have this. And of course, we also have all of your slides in advance. So in essence, this is the 3rd time in a matter of weeks or months that we've gone through this. So thank you very much.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll now move on to item number 3 this
Excuse
morning,
me,
which is the construction update.
Director
and-
Williams had his hand up.
I'm sorry?
Director Williams had his hand up.
Sorry, that was
Oh,
a
I'm
false
sorry.
alarm. I pressed
Sorry.
the wrong button.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay. Thank you, Alice. Item 3, construction update, and this is, good morning, Mr. Fernandez.
Good morning, Chair Richards, and good morning, members of the board. CEO Chaudhry. I am Garth Fernandez. I am the Central Valley Regional Director. Along with me, I have Dr. Gary Walker, who is our Executive Program Director. And I also have Ben Ruiz, who is our Infrastructure Delivery Director. And what we're going to do today is to provide you an update of the status of construction in the Valley, the progress we have made over the last reporting period, and our goals this year to ensure that we'll be able to deliver the civil infrastructure by December of 2026. Next slide, please. So this graphic represents our alignment along the 119 miles in our corridor. You should have all seen this before. As you are aware, our corridor is split up into 3 construction packages, moving north to south from Avenue 19, which is near the existing Amtrak station in Madera for 32 miles. We have CP1. This is our most challenging section, traversing through the city of Fresno, and has been constructed by TPZP, the Studer Pyrenees, Zachary, and Parsons, the joint venture. Next is our longest construction package, CP23. That's at 65 miles, mostly greenfields, but home to our longest structure, the Hanford Viaduct, over 1 mile long, and has been constructed by Dragados Flatiron, again, a joint venture. And then lastly, we all celebrated the substantial completion of 22 miles of construction in construction package 4 that was done by California Rail Builders. And so I would like to pause here and bring up Dr. Gary Walker to present a summary of how we did in the reporting period.
And I've heard from our tech in the back, they're trying to help, but they believe it might be on his end. Director Perea.
Director Perea, can you speak and see if we can hear you? No, I think this may be on your end. I'm not sure. What I think we're going to do is, I think we're going to go ahead and continue with your report, Mr. Fernandez.
Okay, good morning. I would just add that under the construction packages, design and build expenditures, for the period of December, we've achieved just around $42 million, some movement of about 1 million. The spread is even across all packages and consistent with the time of year. Under change orders, I would say that there were 5 for the total of 6.6 million for the period, the largest being 5.5 million fees for the city of Fresno. On risk contingency, the budget contingency remains for construction packages 1 and 2, 3 at 9.9%. Again, consistent with the period of the month of December. And under construction labor, December 2024, average site workers per week was 1,295 workers, compared to the previous period of 1,427, a movement of 132 for the period, in decrease, consistent with the holiday period of December and a railway moratorium possession as planned.
Mr. Walker, welcome aboard.
Thank you very much.
If you wouldn't mind, Mr. Walker has just joined the authority. Maybe you could tell us just 2 or 3 hours of your background and what you what you plan on doing here.
Would you like my background?
Yes. Yeah, we'd like to hear a little bit.
Okay, it's I've never achieved a 60-second pitch in a lift yet. So
All right.
I've been in construction best part of 40 years. I majored in railway engineering. I hold a bachelor's degree in honors in construction management, a master's in project management. My PhD 20 years ago was in railway major project engineering. I've pretty much done about 20 plus years in high-speed rail. I was the first that did the Channel Tunnel Rail Link in the UK, the first did an Africa high-speed rail, which was very challenging. And I'm pleased to be here to support the next generation of the first high-speed rail for America.
Thank you for joining our challenge.
Thank you.
All right.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Next. So while we dive into the details of how we are doing, I wanted to take a moment to highlight the scope of work of all the major elements in the project. So starting from the top, we have 106 distinct structures in two broad categories. Type 1s. These type 1s are structures that we will actually run. So the type 1 structures are those structures that our high-speed rail will run on. We have a total of 46 type 1 structures. Significant among those are 9 major viaducts ranging from 2,200 feet to 6,300 feet at Hanford. And then we have 2 major tunnels or trench sections in Fresno totaling about 2 miles long. The picture you see over there is the San Joaquin River Viaduct structure in Fresno that represents the gateway into Fresno. It's about 4,740 feet long. Then we have the type 2 structures, and the type 2 structures are all the other structures, generally mostly carrying vehicular traffic over the high-speed rail, and those vary anywhere between 200 feet to 800 feet long. So overall, we have completed 61 of these structures. 32 locations are in service and open to traffic today. Also, on the bottom left of your screen, we will also construct 257 reinforced box structures to accommodate wildlife crossings, which we have 189 of in our corridor, and about 68 canal crossings. So we have completed roughly 50% of all the scope of work. You know, one of our primary challenges getting to construction on this program has been the need to relocate 1,836 distinct utilities. Now, these utilities could be there's no simple utility, but a 2-inch to a 4-inch water line. It could be a 96-inch storm drain, or what we did in Fresno was to relocate a communication trunk line for AT&T that comprised of 24 4-inch conduits for 10 miles. Now, these conduits ran all along city of Fresno streets. They have sizable walls in the ground that are 5 feet by 9 feet by 8 feet that are spaced about 600 feet apart on average. This is where the cables that come in, and these cables constitute, each one of these cables have thousands of pairs of wires that actually have to be spliced in these walls by hand. It's a arduous amount of work, and it took us almost 8 years to complete. But the good news is this year we will be done with relocating that entire trunk line. Allow us to finish all of the construction that we have in the city of Fresno. So as far as utilities to date, we have relocated 1,537 utilities. It amounts to about 87% of the work. And then lastly, I put this up there because we want to recognize that we did some projects in partnership with Caltrans. This was 2.5 miles of a freeway realignment in Fresno, where we moved the freeway about 80 feet, reconstructed an interchange and 2 railroad crossings, and we completed this, I believe, in 2018. Next slide, please. So a little known fact is that we are also constructing over 4 miles of freight railroad track. You know, in CP23, we have 2 separate locations that we are working on, and we have completed 1 of those locations, and our plan is to complete the next one later this year. So the picture on the bottom that you see to our left is our intrusion protection barrier. Now you will see this wall if you drive our alignment, especially in the city of Fresno. I just wanted to give you a sense of what this wall is actually. It's about 3 feet thick. It's about 16 to 18 feet high, and it is on a foundation that constitutes piles that are 20 feet deep at 10 foot on center. It's It's a huge wall, and it's supposed to preclude the freight trains from entering into our corridor. We also have berms that are utilized for intrusion protection. We have a total of 36 miles of intrusion protection throughout our corridor, and we are about 45% complete in that endeavor. So to build our corridor, our corridor is generally elevated throughout the valley. We require about 24 million cubic yards of earth. And to give you perspective of a sense of what that is, if you took the size of a football field and stacked all the earth there, it would be as tall as some of the highest mountain ranges in the state of California, over about 13,000 feet tall. And we are about 80% complete with all of the dirt that we have to put down in the valley. And then lastly, right-of-way has been another challenge for us. The good news is that this year, we'll be able to say that we have completed 100% delivery of all the right-of-way parcels for the program for the 119. Next slide. So I did mention that our goal and our target was to get to completion in December of 2026. And to get there, we have set construction goals for this year in 2025. And I'd like to walk you through some of those goals to enable us, that we established to enable us to meet those commitments. So we will complete 17 structures this year, 6 in CP1, 11 in CP23. This also includes the 5 viaducts in CP23. With that completion, we would have completed all of the 9 major viaducts on our corridor. For the guideway, we would have rough grading started on 114 miles of the 119 miles. And creating immediate benefits to the traveling public, we will open 9 new grade separations. These are separations that the moment we are done, we open it to traffic so it can be utilized and put to use. So a detailed list and timing of some of these goals are identified later in the presentation. And our infrastructure delivery director, Ben, will go over some of those goals. Next slide, please. We talked about our schedule. We are committed to complete all infrastructure for the 119 in 2026. And we are working with our contractors through renewed leadership here with our CEO. This is going to be a heavy lift for all of us in the Valley, but we are committed and getting the contractors and the teams all aligned to be able to achieve that. We talked about the right-of-way. We will deliver all of the right-of-way, the 17 parcels required this year. And lastly, we also are planning to relocate 175 of the remaining 299 utilities on the program. This is going to be 100 in CP1, 75 in CP23. And these utilities are specific utilities that are prioritized based on our ability or the criticality of the project and ability to get to 2026. So these are not, it's just not a number. These are specific utilities we are tracking. Just to give you a sense, last year, our goal for utilities was set at 163. We relocated 290, and we fully anticipate being able to beat that to be able to give us some breathing room next year to complete the rest of it. So with that, I will bring up Ben Ruiz, who is our Director of Infrastructure Delivery, to talk to you a little more specifics about details of our goals. Ben?
Chairman Richards. Director Perea had a question for Garth. Should we wait or should I ask that now?
We can be available together jointly to have quick Q&A, but if there's a question right now, I'll be happy to take it.
Okay. No, I was going to ask it for him. He gave it to me in chat. He says he's asked if we have approved construction schedules for CP 1, 2, and 3, and the progress of third-party issues to achieve our late 2026 deadline.
So as far as schedules are concerned, we do have a schedule for CP1. Contractual, we are working, and Ben will talk a little bit about this in our risk slide that we have. We are working with the CP23 contractor to finalize our baseline schedule. And we are working with the contractor at the highest levels. Ian Chaudhary is very involved in in those conversations. The commitments that we've got from the contractor that, yes, we will be able to get done in 2026. And there was another question about utilities. As far as utilities are concerned, the goals that we are setting for our utilities fully enables us to achieve our targets. Right, so when I talked about the specificity of the utility, these are specific utilities that we are actually going to, we are targeting. So if I get a utility that is due in 2026, done today, that is not going to be part of the 150, the 175 that we're reporting on. We are holding the 175 utilities, and we'll make sure that we deliver every single one of them to achieve our goal.
Thank you, Garth.
Good morning, Chair Richard, CEO Chowdhury, and board members. My name is Ben Ruiz. I'm the Infrastructure Delivery Director in the Central Valley for the Authority, and happy to be here to report on the progress of CP1 and CP23. I don't know if you can see the slides, but next slide, please. I'll start with CP1, Construction Package 1. 32 miles long, most of it's in the heart of the city of Fresno. We do have about 12 miles that's to the north of Fresno in Madera County. What you see here is one of the structures there in Madera County, Avenue 17, which is a type 2 structure going over our alignment and over BNSF. This is one of the structures that will be completed this year. As you can see, it's pretty well advanced. We've got girders up, currently working on setting rebar for the bridge deck. So this is one that will be opening here later this year, and we'll be happy to report that. As Garth mentioned, we got 3 major viaducts in CP1, which have been completed, but we have some work to do in the heart of the city of Fresno. And again, our goals and our targets are to be substantially complete by the end of 2026 on CP1 and CP23. Next slide, please. So this is just the progress and our targets for structures on CP23. You can see from the pie chart, there's 33 total structures, 18 of which are complete. We have 11 underway right now, of those, they're 32% complete. We have 4 remaining structures to start. All our structures will be starting construction by this year and will be substantially complete by the end of 2026. In the next couple of months, we'll be opening a couple of key structures, one at Central Avenue, which is just at the southern end of the city of Fresno. That structure is almost complete. We're working on wrapping up the roadway approaches so that we can open that structure to traffic. And then Belmont Overhead is kind of in the heart of the city of Fresno. Again, we just poured a bridge deck there recently, and we should be opening that to traffic here in the next couple to 3 months or so. Additionally, a big milestone that we're going to hit here this weekend is we have Union Pacific Railroad coming into town to do a cutover in downtown Fresno. We've been waiting to get that accomplished here for a while. That'll allow us to complete the Tulare Street underpass and the Ventura Street underpass later this year so that we can open it to traffic in downtown Fresno. So we're monitoring that closely. We need to get that accomplished. So, yep, and then we have some work ahead of us in 2026. We have a number of structures to complete. Yeah, next slide. As far as our guideway, we have 32 miles of guideway. We have 12 miles complete, which means we have rough graded those, bringing in the dirtway embankment. We still have to come in and do a prepared subgrade and a capping layer to protect it when our contractor's finished, but that'll come in at the very end of the construction of CP1. We have 9 miles underway, of which they're about 60% complete. And then we have 11 miles remaining to be started. 6.5 of those will start this year. And then we have a section from the San Joaquin River Viaduct to Ashland Avenue, which will start second quarter of 2026. One of the things that you'll see is that on CP1, it's more structure intensive, not so much dirt work. CP23 is a lot of dirt work, a lot of cubic yards of embankment. Next slide. We have a lot of work to do, and Garth mentioned it's going to be a heavy lift. It doesn't come without challenges. One of the biggest challenges that we have on CP1 that's really stressing our schedule is the location at Herndon Avenue. Herndon Avenue is a major thoroughfare in the city of Fresno, east-west thoroughfare, and we're going to depress it under our alignment as well as the UPR alignment. So we've been working at very high levels with folks at Union Pacific Railroad, the city of Fresno, to make sure that we address the concerns with the construction work there. And so we're anticipating that we'll be able to get going on the heavy civil construction here in the coming weeks. We've done a lot of the work that goes underground, all the utilities that need to be relocated. A lot of that work has been completed, but we still have some challenges here at Herndon Avenue that we'll be monitoring closely. Next slide. Moving on to construction package 2-3. As Garth mentioned in the opening, this is our longest section of our longest construction package, totaling 65 miles, mostly rural, traverses through about 20 miles of Fresno County, another 20 miles or so of Kings County, and then to the south in Tulare County. What you see here is one of the 5 major viaducts in CP23. This is the Conejo Viaduct, which will take our high-speed rail alignment up and over to cross from west to east of the BNSF railroad tracks. As Garth mentioned, all our viaducts will be substantially complete in this year, 2025. Next slide. We have 48 total structures on CP23. 23 of those are complete. We have 21 underway, of which those are 48% complete approximately. We have 4 remaining structures to start. Those will all be started this calendar year, and with the goal of getting everything done by fourth quarter of 2026. Like I said, there's a lot of work to be done here. 11 structures to complete this year, 14 structures to complete next year. Many of you, if you've come out to see construction, have probably visited the Hanford Viaduct site, the site of our largest viaduct in the program, over 6,000 feet long, and that'll be completed fourth quarter of this year. Next slide. As far as Guideway, we have a total of 65 miles, 37 miles are complete to rough grade, 16 miles underway, which are 70% complete, and we have 12 remaining miles of Guideway to start. All will be started within this calendar year. Garth gave you an indication of the total amount of earthwork that's necessary on the 119 miles. For these 12 miles, these 12 miles that are remaining requires just under 3 million cubic yards of dirt. And so we're aiming to start that this year so we can be complete by the end of 2026. Next slide. As far as our challenges, I think, it's going to be a tough lift, like Garth said. It's a grind every day. There's challenges we get every day. But really the biggest thing on CP23, it's not so much the physical work. We can handle that on a day-to-day basis, but really getting into alignment with our contractor on the revised baseline schedule, not so much the schedule, but the commercial issues associated with that. And so as Garth mentioned, we're talking at the highest executive levels between our contractor and the authority to see if we can come to a resolution on that here in the near future. And I think next slide. With that, I'll turn it over back to Garth.
Well, this is the last time we're going to make the switch. So this is, next slide, please. We wanted to talk to you a little bit about the railhead. This is the location where we had the groundbreaking substantial completion for CP4 earlier this year. We have selected BNSF via contract to develop the railhead site. They have a construction contractor that has actually already begun construction. They have cleared and grubbed the area over there in that area, taken all the trees out, and we are on schedule to finish installation of all of the track work associated with that contract by fall of 2025. And with that, we'll leave it open for any questions you may have, and call up Gary and
Yes.
Ben to join me, answer any questions.
Director Escutia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking at your slide 11 as well as slide on page 11 as well as a slide on page 16. And it talks about the construction packages, identifies the primary risks and the risk mitigations underway, which I think is really good. I'm glad you're giving us that information. I'm really grateful also for the presentation. But I think what's missing here in my opinion, is outstanding liabilities, and by that I mean specifically change orders. Would it be possible for us as board members to get a report on the outstanding change orders divided by construction package 1, construction package 2, 3? I would like to find out how much money is out there that's at risk and basically a status report.
I will take that one.
Okay,
We will look into it. The way the changes are managed on the program is some of it is the contractor and the authority team works together, and we inform them for what we want them to change or modify. Those are our authority directed changes. Then we have
which I have no problem with.
right, and then we have the other situations where the contractor team sends us the information and they say a change has occurred. And we then go through a very lengthy process of meriting, checking, vetting, verifying. And then we go back. And if we go back with a different approach or different view, that starts that discussion. And then we reach a conclusion with them. And it may not be the same thing when they started with us.
So you're negotiating the price?
It goes into scope, what was in the contract, what was not in the contract. And if there's a concurrencies of the things that they are saying were delayed because of utilities or right of way. And so that's the process that takes us to a conclusion, which could be sometimes very different than where they started. And that's the part that we will think about how to produce that information, because it's always an ongoing conversation, especially in the CP23. Because it's not final in many cases, we'll think about how we can produce that information for work in progress. And that takes some time, very long time.
Well, I would highly recommend, Ian, that we as a board get that information as soon as it is practical,
Sure.
because ultimately, I think we have to vote on that, right? In terms of approving a change order and the payment for a change order?
So actually, any change order that's within the board-approved overarching budget, Mr. Chaudhry does have authority. He would report on that change order rather than it being a vote.
Okay. I would just love to see, respecting all of the concerns over, protecting the process and a certain amount of confidentiality. I would really appreciate just seeing it in writing, so that I, as a board member, in those situations in which I have to cast a vote, because I know I will have to cast a vote on this, I'd like to get that information sooner rather than later.
Right. Jamie? Don't we provide those updates on the changes that occur in our financial F&A committees?
Yeah, in our Central Valley status report and also in our executive summary to the financial report, every time we execute a change order, we provide that. When we do use your delegation for over 25 million, we report specifically that item in our contingency report. It's the second to last slide that I went over today.
Yeah, and Director Scudia, we will also look at once it's practical and we are almost sure 100%
Right.
that this is the outcome, then yeah, we'll look at that. How do we present that?
And since I'm pretty busy, if you can just give me, when the moment is right, just give me one page.
Mhm.
On this, we owe this much money. On that, we owe this much money. For these following reasons, that's all I need.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, Director Gilmani.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, I understand Dennis Kim has left us. So who's in charge now of right-of-way and utility relocations? Do we have
I
a
will
set
invite
person?
our director for California State Region Wide, Basim Moalem, to come and introduce himself.
Good morning, Board Chair, CEO. My name is Basim Moalem. So this is actually my 5th week. I am the statewide regional director. My role is to be in charge of right-of-way and utilities. My background, I have 32 years with Caltrans. I know we've met before, Mr. Gilmeri, when you were with the CTC, and spent the next 10 years as a consultant working for Parsons, WSP, Rail Pros, and then HNTB. I'm very delighted to be here. This is, as Mr. Chowdhury says, this is a transformative project. And so I want to leave this as my legacy. Very excited to be here. And I'm also working with the regions, with Garth, Boris, and Ladana down south. And so my aim is that we streamline the process, we be innovative, and the key word is we want to be efficient. So we want to do this in a way that makes sense and that we are nimble. I've just finished actually reorganizing our org chart. We're taking a lot of stuff out that we don't think we need. So I want to be as efficient as I can be. And we want to track all the right-of-way parcels and the utilities early on before they become a problem. And that's my commitment to this program.
Welcome aboard and good luck.
Thanks.
Ditto.
Thank you.
Any other questions from any of my colleagues? Seeing none, a great report. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
So now we'll move on to item number 4, and that's our CEO report. Director, CEO Kadri.
Yes. Okay, so we heard from our team about the progress that we have made so far on the project in terms of construction on CP 1, 2, 3, 4. And also what we are doing in Vasco for our railhead, for the yard, that we are preparing to receive all our commoditized materials. We'll talk a little bit about the path forward and how we envision this program to get to a place where we can see public transportation services running in the 119 miles first, and then getting to other parts of the Central Valley. And then also we'll talk a little bit about how do we get outside of the Central Valley. We explained that we have issued our project update report that is out now, where we have given all the information of what we are doing and how we are strategizing and analyzing all our current project different functions. And the goal I have set for the team is very simple: build smart, fast, and economically. So each of these elements, smart means build structures, infrastructure at the right time with the right capacity, staged according to the phase of the project we are in. What does that mean is streamline designs, streamline purchasing of equipment and materials in a manner that it fits the need of that stage in which we are in. So for 119 miles, we have a certain approach, which we are currently looking at, is to update our cost and schedule. And the program has not, I believe, have not done significant cost and schedule update as a bottom-up approach for a long time. So we are going through that. You will not see that in the project update reports those numbers yet, but we do plan to provide all that information this summer. We also looked at, since I have been here a little over 6 months, what were the obstacles that we went through in the CP 1, 2, 3, 4 construction portion of it. One of which, or three, I would say. Two of them were very important. Right-of-way acquisition challenges that we went through did impacted the program in the way it did. So we have taken special approach or very specific approach to that. And under the leadership of Basim, who just introduced himself, he has his goals and targets given to him, and he understands. We were able to look at a couple of other programs within the region outside of California. The acquisition process under the codes and the laws, we are targeting significantly improving the acquisition of right-of-way per month for the new project parcels. At the same time, we also are looking at how to improve the situation we dealt with in CP 1234 for utilities. I personally went and talked to our legislator team, and Senator Scott Wiener heard me clear that utilities not able to relocate on time is the real source of us not being able to build structures on a schedule. So if we don't have jurisdictional authority to have any time frame on that utility to move, then our schedules literally cannot be 100% right. So he sponsored a bill that's, I believe, is SB 244. If I'm mistaken on that, somebody can later correct it. So he has sponsored a bill in which California state agencies, including us, would have the ability to provide a timeline for the utilities, like a notice period and then relocation period. That creates some confidence in our schedules in the future. That was a step that we had to go and ask to our folks in the Capitol to help us with. That will, in the future, creates more credible schedules that we actually can say that if it is a 60 days period to relocate a utility, then that's it. After that, we are then able to take action under this bill. We are able to take action and go relocate the utility ourselves. That is critical for us. The other one that we have been working with the state Department of Finance and the governor's team, that those results are not in the project update report yet. It is relevant to funding and financing mechanisms. The program has, everyone knows that the program had challenges from funding and financing point of view since the beginning. So what we are doing now is seeing and providing an approach to Department of Finance and also to our legislative team and also to the governor's office that there is a way to look at financing it in an innovative way. We will continue to ask for federal participation in the program as we have done in the past. But what I have come to a conclusion, if we do not stabilize the funding approach on this, the inefficiencies that are in there will continue to cause two things. Schedule risk because of the way we are procuring different contract packages, and then definitely direct impact is on the cost uncertainty. So that is in the project update report. We have provided, so we had another event that we did. We wanted the industry input on this program. And so we held an industry event. When was that? January, right? And so we had significant amount of industry folks who participated in that, and ranging from product suppliers of nuts and bolts and screws to all the way people who would like to invest in the program. A little bit of that is something we can share with you, and then we can talk about what the industry is telling us.
Go ahead and play the video.
More than 400 experts and innovators made their way to Sacramento for the California High-Speed Rail Authority's two-day industry forum. They represented a number of areas: design, track and systems, maintenance and operations, technology, utilities and power, tunneling, finance, and more.
I can tell you, we are deeply, all of us, deeply committed to deliver this project.
They got a chance to hear from Ian Chowdhury, a 30-year veteran transportation engineer who worked on high-speed rail in Europe before becoming the authority's CEO. He laid out his vision for California high-speed rail.
Nothing else. Laser focused on building more and getting it delivered sooner, economically, smarter, and faster. And we can do it. We are ready now to start laying tracks. And that's where we want to go. We want to get moving on building tracks so we can start running trains.
The authority and its contractors solicited ideas from forum participants on how to get trains zipping through California's Central Valley on 119 miles of test track.
I'm with the California Public Utilities Commission Rail Safety Division. I'm here to learn what we can about the high-speed rail project and how it's being done, how we can help in the safety side of it.
Tony Valdez worked on high-speed rail with an engineering firm. Now he represents VG Builders.
We're a local contractor from Fresno, California, small business, and definitely very supportive of the high-speed rail program because it helps our community, makes it a better location to live with, and eventually with cleaner air and better quality of life for the rest of California.
Secretary of Transportation Tokes Omashakan joined the forum and told participants high-speed rail has reduced unemployment in California, especially in the Central Valley.
An average of 1,600 people come to work every day to work on this project. Not a lot of projects that can say that in this state or in this country.
The project has created nearly 15,000 jobs, and more than 880 small businesses have been awarded high-speed rail contracts. FMG and Company is among those firms. CEO Charissa Frank wants to successfully compete for more work.
I'm actually pretty optimistic after hearing the comments today, and it sounds like things are really being realigned to move forward really quickly, and we like that, because we want to keep our state moving and our people busy, and so I'm optimistic.
The authority says it will take what is learned here to complete the high-speed rail project from San Francisco to Los Angeles and Anaheim. It's the nation's largest public works project, a project designed to change future travel in California for the better.
So this was what we did in January. What happened after that is most of these industry participants, they are now coming back. What they heard from us, what they shared with us, they went back, and most of them are coming back with second round of discussions. And some of them are very interested in working on the financing solutions. So we are very optimistic that we will have a solution working with the state and with private sector that we can stabilize the funding of this program this year at some point. The information is available to the decision makers who need to know what the solutions are. And I'm looking forward to continue the conversations with the team at the governor's office, Department of Finance, and our legislature. So that's it for my update. There's a lot of exciting things we are doing. We will keep you updated on those at every board meeting. A lot of changes are happening. Any
Thank you.
questions?
Thank you, Ian. Any questions for our CEO? I'd just like to congratulate you. I mean, we've had industry days before. We've not seen anything like what we saw in January. I know that Ian spent an unrealistic amount of time calling contacts around the world. We were represented in this industry by numbers of companies from Europe.
Yep.
It was exciting and it was encouraging. And so you are truly to be congratulated for that, and we appreciate it. And it's leading to the kinds of results that you had hoped for. And it's a pretty exciting time for this project.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for participating at the industry event, all of you too.
We'll move on. Thank you again, and move on now just to a short update on the Finance and Audit Committee meeting earlier this morning. The numbers that we were presented were effective as of December 31st of 24. The total cash resources the authority currently holds are $4.3 billion, primarily composed of Proposition 1A funds of a little over $750 million, and cap and trade $3.5 billion. What's not included in that number is 257 billion, or excuse me, million. We wish it was a billion. 200. We wouldn't be sitting here. We'd be out there building right now. So it was 257 million from the November cap and trade auction, which is not incorporated in that 4.3 number. We also were noticed that in our F&A meeting that the results of the February auction are in, and that we will receive another 212 million. So, and again, both of those will be reflected here in 2025. In terms of total capital outlay, in the month of December was 81.6 million, of which 42 million roughly were spent on design build contracts. Looking forward, the anticipated total capital expenditure in January is about 97 million, up from the 81.6 in December. Looking at the project from its outset, total expenditures for this project have been approximately 13.5 billion. Of that number, 81% of the funding, about 11.2 billion, have been funded by the state of California, and 19% by the federal government at 2.25 billion. In terms of project funding, that amounts to, in total, it amounts to, in total, the funding for the project itself is 77% from the state, and of that amount, 31% from Proposition 1A, 25% from cap and trade, and anticipated funding from cap and trade through the twilight of this current cap and trade period in 2030 is another 23%, or excuse me, 21%. Future expenditures, I mentioned, is 96.6 for just January, and you've heard pretty much everything in the earlier report in this meeting on the Central Valley Construction Report. So that is the report from the Finance and Audit meeting earlier this morning. Any questions? All right. So we now have a few minutes for any board member comments, if anybody wants to address the board on any matters that you'd like to raise at this point. All right. With that, oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yes.
I just want to sort of echo what you've been saying, and others that feel so much more confident now that we have Ian Chowdhury on board, and what you've done in this short time has really turned us in the right direction. And I'm very, very grateful that you brought on such an outstanding team in such a short period.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. With that, any other comments? And seeing none, we do.
Just want to, sorry, I know you're trying to move us along here. I want to echo what I think that was Board Member Shank. I can't see. But
Yes,
I want to echo that. And I also want to add how, going back to the video we just watched and some of the other comments that have been made, this is a project of significance, not only to the state, but to the country. And it's important that we get this done. it will transform the lives of so many people across our state and nation. And I'm so pleased to see us making the changes that we needed to make to help move it in the right direction. And I won't say to get us back on track. So I thank you, CEO Chaudhry, and the board for moving us in the right direction at the right time.
Thank you, Emily. You know, one quick thing. We are certainly the recipient of a good deal of reporting, and justifiably, I might say, in many instances, perhaps most instances. But what we're doing here, I mean, we keep referring to this as California high-speed rail, and that in fact is what it is. But this is only the beginning of what is also the Southwest high-speed rail network. And that network is a combination of California as perhaps the largest and leading member in the Southwest network, but it will ultimately include Nevada, which is already preparing to move towards California, and we are proud to be supporting the Brightline project and working with them in a memorandum of understanding. But together with all those interested in high-speed rail, we're really talking about Arizona, New Mexico, probably Oregon, Utah, but it's a corridor similar to what we all have grown up hearing about, the Northeast Corridor. But this is a true high-speed rail corridor that we're talking about and connecting these major population and economic centers together. And so really, it's a network that we are leading in moving forward on, but it's not just simply a California project. And I think that that is going to cause collaborations from other states in joining in their interest with high-speed rail in completing a network for the southwest part of our country. So that's what I really think that we're all facing. And this is the true design and purpose of high-speed rail, to provide this alternative means of surface transportation at speeds that are very, very attractive when considering the costs and the flight from one state to another. So that's where we're headed, and we're excited about it and excited about what you're doing here, Ian. With that, we're going to go to a closed session. I'll be back after the closed session and let you know whether or not there were any actions taken. And with that, we'll move into recess. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is the California High-Speed Rail Authority's Board of Directors meeting for March 6th, 2025. The board has just finished its meeting in closed session, and I'm reporting to you that there have been no decisions made. So with that, the business of this meeting is now complete, and the meeting is adjourned. Have a good day.